There's a new king on the EV market, and we have it with us this week, the EV9s. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Pat and we have Brian behind the camera as always. I'm just a military guy that likes to do car reviews and a vehicle enthusiast. And this week we have the 2024 Kia EV9 GT. So we're gonna tell you everything about this vehicle and we're gonna test it and give you our impressions. So let's go for a ride. And welcome aboard the Kia EV9 GT, which offers you 379 horsepower and 560 pounds-feet of torque. Can go 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Let's test that out, shall we? Sport mode and launch in 3, 2, 1. Oh. Yeah. So, acceleration not a problem with this with this SUV. All right. So that's great. What it gives me for range? Well, it gives you about 270 miles of range or 439 kilometers. This particular unit is priced at $73,900 US or 81,495 Canadian dollars. So it is the top trim. And speaking of trims, we are going to show you right over here all the trims that it can be spec'd out of. So you can see it could start rear wheel drive and from the light trim, and then you go through the other elements, wind and land, and then you add packages, premium and such. Now while I have you on this ride, if you're enjoying this ride with me, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment if you see anything that we missed or just enjoy our video overall. Thank you very much. Now we're gonna go right off into finding what I find a little bit comical about the trims. Now in the US you can pretty much get all-wheel drive from the wind trim, which is the second from the bottom, but in Canada you have to get the land trim, so basically the top trim, and then you have premium package and GT package that you can add depending on what you want as far as features and such. But I do find it weird that in Canada, where we get a lot of snow, we can't just have the wind trim and get all-wheel drive. You know, it comes in rear-wheel drive, which for me in snow country would do me absolutely no good. Now, as we're inside this vehicle, the first thing you'll notice is dual 12.3-inch screens, basically, with a 5-inch screen that is for the HVAC. Now, you have the driver cluster, 12.3-inch, and then you have the infotainment system, 12.3-inch as well. And in the middle of that, which is customizable, you can move those screens around. But it's, I think, where it is right now is probably the best location for it, is the HVAC. So the climate controls are right there in the middle, and I'm quite okay with those. I find that having a designated spot for HVAC or climate controls definitely makes it easier to have them on the screens, and that negates the use of hard buttons and such. So having a dedicated platform on the screen just for heating, ventilation, air is just a very good idea. So Kia, you did good by that, and I'm quite okay with this one. Now another thing that Kia, I'm gonna want to say that they did great, but actually, it's about time they did it, is wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which goes perfectly well with the wireless charger that's right down here. Now if you don't like dealing with just a screen as far as your climate controls, fear not, there is some hard buttons as well for climate controls right down here, and you do have capacitive buttons for your home, map, search, media, and obviously your favorites and your setup. And you do have to press and hold them a little bit because they're capacitive and not just touch buttons. But I will say that I am not too fan of where they're located, because I like to rest my hand while I'm touching the touchscreen, and that will sometimes trigger the menu to pop up, or for me to touch a capacitive button, and that kind of screws me up. So I would change the location of where they are. And one thing that's a little bit new to me, definitely new to me, is a fingerprint scanner right here in the center console. So I will say that kind of threw me off, and I kind of had to make some queries about why that is. So it's basically to recognize the ID, so you can either the ID of the driver, so you can either type your PIN, or you can just scan your fingerprints if you program it initially when you get it. Now that's great. I just figured they would have used that for more of the safety feature for the car, for it to start and such. I just think that there's so much to do with that tech that just using it for ID identification for the driver settings, you know, seats and infotainment settings, there's a lot more that could be done with it, is all I'm saying. And speaking of seats and driver, so basically you have your 8-way adjustment seats, and you do have a massage as well. Now, and it's got heated, ventilated seats, as well as heated steering wheel. And again, the heated steering wheel, I just find it not very intuitive of its location. Now, it's on the side right here where the door is, where all the heated seats commands are. And I just didn't find that very intuitive. I think the heated steering wheel should have been a button on the actual steering wheel itself, because it makes sense to me that I want my steering wheel to be warm. I look at the steering wheel, right? And we test drive quite a bit of vehicles, so that's usually the known location. But that's a small matter if you own this vehicle. It's pretty easy to train yourself otherwise. Now, as I'm making this left turn right here, one thing I do like that Kia has been, and Hyundai as well, has been doing with these 12-inch digital display is the camera pops up on the side that you're turning. So I have the less flasher on. The camera shows what my blind spot is and what's there. I actually kind of like that. I still tend, obviously I'm going to look at the mirror, but it's nice to just have a quick glance there and be double sure. Always check though over your shoulders. Come on, don't rely on technology, people. So moving on to everything else about the interior is very, very good. There's lots of connections, USB-A's, USB-C's, for connecting your phone and charging whatever device you might have. There's also a lot of storage. There's this bin underneath the center console. You can put pretty much like a pretty good sized bag in there, and it's in a bin, so it'll prevent it from moving around. The center console itself does not have a whole lot of storage, and that's because there's a sliding storage that goes for the people in the second row. And while we're still on the center console, it's got these huge cup holders, which I'm always a big fan of. You can go and get yourself a big gulp. It's not going to be an issue. And it actually has these push button. And there you go. You have smaller cup holders if you need to. And then you just slide them back into their spot if you need some bigger storage areas for, well, it'd have to be a really good big size cup. Let's put it that way. But the cup holders, really well designed, so good on you guys for that. I do have a little bit of a, maybe it's because I'm not used to it. Obviously, we just get these cars for a week, so. But I'm not a big fan of where the start button is. I feel like if I want to go directly into it, I gotta go through the steering wheel. But and also the shifters there, I just feel like perhaps a rotary shifter at the center console would have been a better location. But again, that's always personal preference. I do like the way you twist it, and I know Volkswagen has been doing that with their ID4, and I find that's still a pretty good way of changing gears. And that brings me to the overall comfort in the front. Well, it is extremely comfortable, especially since I'm getting massaged right now. Yes, the massaging seats are pretty cool, and the seat overall is very good for support. And when you get the GT line like this, you actually have basically the leg rest that can go up for the captain's chairs in the back, as well obviously in the front for the front passenger as well. So I find that pretty cool, and that Kia thought about it, and it's very, very comfortable. Legroom up here is about 41.4 inches, so plenty of legroom. Now let's see how much legroom we have in the second row. I can't just say in the back because we have 3 rows. So second row legroom is 42.7 inches, plenty of headroom as well. And it's got its own HVAC system. It's got USB plugins that are actually in the seat. I'm not too sure if I'm a big fan of the back seats being, the second row being able to control the positioning of the front seats, because there's buttons right here on the side. But because I could see my my kid being the menace that he is, to trying to just mess with me and change that all the time. But I can see that maybe being a little bit another thing to annoy parents, is all I'm saying. Now, of course, these second row people, they're not just slumming it. They do have heated seats as well back there. And if you're asking if you have a rear facing child seat, and you can put it there and it can still like collapse to let people pass to the third row, unfortunately not. There's only 2 vehicles that I know of that can do that have a rear facing child seat and still be flung over, and that would be the Volkswagen Atlas, which we reviewed, check that out, and the Nissan Pathfinder, which we also reviewed, so check that one out as well. But for these ones, yeah. One thing about the second row seats is, for the higher trim, it's motorized, so you just press a button and it will slowly move and allow you to climb over into the third row. My gripe with that is that takes forever, and it's almost better to get a lower trim, get the lower trim, press the button, and it just slingshots right there and you're ready to go. So it's cool that it's motorized, but it's not cool because it takes such a long time. That's just my thought. Now that brings us to the third row. Third row, how much space do you get? Well, you get 30.8 inches, which is actually pretty good in this segment. There's definitely other 3-row SUVs that don't offer that much space. So as an adult, you can be sitting back there, and of course you can always move the second row seats forward to make up for more room. So it's definitely a good third row. A lot of charging ports. You get cup holders as well, so they're also not slumming it. And now that we're all the way in the back of the vehicle, how much space do we have back there? Well, with all the seats up, you have about 20 cubic feet of space. And if you do put that third row down, you have 43 cubic feet of space. And if you decide not to have any passengers back there, you will have 81 cubic feet of space. Definitely ample enough cargo. So, but that is not all for cargo space, because we have a frunk. That's right. Front space is about 1.8 cubic feet of space in the front for the all-wheel drive, and the rear-wheel drive has a little bit more room, 3.2 cubic feet, which I like the fact that they considered that, hey, we don't have an engine in the front, we can maximize the space, because a lot of manufacturers are just going one size fits all, whether it's rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. They don't adapt the cargo space. So I definitely like that Kia thought about this, saying, wait, we take that motor out from the front, we have more space, just give him more cargo space. So looking at the appearance of this very square looking vehicle, you would think, okay, the aerodynamics are not that great, but you'd be wrong. It's got 0.28 drag coefficient, which is the exact same as the Kia EV6, a much smaller vehicle and a much more rounder vehicle. So that's quite impressive that they were able to get that. So this being an SUV, we're going to talk a little bit of ground clearance. How much ground clearance do you get from this Kia EV9? Well, you get 7.8 inches of ground clearance. I will say that it does look like it's very low to the ground for an SUV. That could have a factor with, you know, how boxy it looks and, you know, how long it is in comparison. but it, I always feel like an SUV should be a little bit higher. But again, this is an EV and it's got pretty good range for that reason. The GT line does have 21-inch alloy wheels, and you will look at the cover and you'll notice that that's not an alloy cover. You'd be right, it is a plastic cover, but behind that it is alloy wheels for the GT trim. And still moving on to the side, you'll notice the door handles, and every time I see flush door handles, whether it's like Tesla doing it or other manufacturers are doing it, my first question is, how will this be during a freezing rainstorm where all you have is ice around it? And we actually had a pretty big snowstorm here during the time I had this vehicle, and as soon as you walk up to the vehicle, those handles push out and very easy to grab. They're actually, as far as flushed handle style, this is the best style I've seen on the market right now. It's just so easy. Comes out, grab it, open the door, no issues, and it feels really sturdy. So good job on that. I actually do like the fact that, because some doors, when I've opened the Tesla, you push with your thumb and then you open it, I always get some fragility feeling out of it, that this could easily break if I'm really mad and I'm opening my door. But in this sense, I do not get that. I get a very good, strong, sturdy feeling when I'm grabbing that door handle and yanking it open. So for those who saw our Kia EV6 review that Brian did, you'll notice that the Kia EV6 did not have a rear wiper. So if your question is, does this one have one? Yes, it do. And it's actually a top mounted rear wiper. And I'm used to the bottom mounted one. I have a hatchback which has a rear wiper. So, but it does clear the rear windshield pretty good. I still prefer the bottom mounted rear wiper though, if you're asking me what my preference is. And while we're on the subject of wipers, I did find one thing I did not like about this vehicle, and that's the front wipers. I can't lift them up when I want to clear the snow behind them or underneath them, because the hood goes kind of like over them. And as you can see, up here in snow country, we clear our windshields quite a lot of heavy and thick snow and ice and such. And one of the first things I end up doing before I do so is I flop the windshield wipers up in an upward position. And I can't do that here, and I can see that would be an annoyance in the end. This is the first model of its kind to come out. Now, you do have some competition out there. We talk about the Rivian R1S, maybe the Mercedes EQS, the Tesla Model X, but I don't think any of them are comparing to this particular vehicle, because one, they're not in the same price range. You can top trim this model and you're still not at entry level of any of those three. Also, I find this to have more space than the Model X as well. And so these other two, the Rivian R1S does have more space than this vehicle, but I just find every convenience that this vehicle has is just so good. I mean, maybe aside from the Mercedes, but now you're looking at a $130,000 vehicle compared to a $79,000 vehicle. You can't really compare that. So right now, this is the only one of its kind that's out there. And some people might say that Kia might have rushed to get this out, but I don't get that feeling. Everything was so well thought out, from the cup holders, from the seats, and from everything, that the build quality in this vehicle, when you shut the door, everything, the steering wheel, it's a little bit thicker, and I have nothing to say negatively about how this vehicle handles, how it drives. And I drove it through in a big snowstorm. Now, granted, this is a heavier vehicle. It's like a 6,000 pound vehicle. So when you're driving in the snow, you definitely have to keep that in mind. Your stopping distance is definitely longer than it would be for internal combustion that's half the size. So keep that in mind, folks, as you're driving these in the snow. But that being said, this vehicle handles really well. You don't feel like it's that heavy. The steering is pretty light for a big vehicle like this. Turning radius is great. Parking, no issues. You got so many cameras, so many sensors. When you look at the 3D view that they give you when you come parking and such. And this vehicle actually has smart parking for you, but I'm not putting in a demo in this video because it is so excruciatingly long and slow. I'm not going to use it, not the parking, but it's pretty cool that it has it. One way that I might use it is that I can order to pull out, and let's say somebody parks really close to me and not have to climb over the other side just to get in. I can just grab my remote, my key fob, and back it up or drive it forward, depending if I pulled in or backed in, and then I can get in. I find that is actually a pretty cool feature. But as far as getting the vehicle to park for me, you know what, this vehicle handles so well, and there's no blind spots really once the cameras are on. And we're just going over a big speed bump here. There we go. Suspension is actually pretty good. You know, that definitely could have felt a lot worse because it's a pretty big speed bump. So yeah, parking assist. The smart parking, it's cool, but I'm not going to use it ever. So Brian, this parking spot is too tight for me, even though there is no car right there. So what I'm going to do is and reverse it. So you hear a little bit of the chime for reversing, and we're going to try to reverse it into a ditch. No, not. There you go. It actually stopped by itself. I was still holding it and stopped right before the pavement ended, giving you a little bit of a buffer back there. So here it is. You can back it up and park it. Now, as far as some more specs for this vehicle, it can tow up to 5,000 pounds, which is pretty cool. But as we know with EVs, you might not want to buy this for towing purposes. Range is always gets affected, and yeah, so 5,000 pound max towing, not too bad. So what has my experience been all week driving this vehicle? Well, I have a family. I have a kid, and he plays various sports like hockey, which requires a bag, and I play hockey as well. And I found that I may have found the EV that can suit my life, that is suitable for my lifestyle, because, well, I have the all-wheel drive, which is great for my mountain life up here in snow country, and ample space. We have the captain's chairs, and you know, so much room in this vehicle. Really good range. As you look at the range numbers for whichever trims, I personally probably would not go for the GT. I think the Land trim all-wheel drive is well priced, especially for that segment. I mean, if you're going to go for a three-row SUV EV, this is essentially your option, unless you want to go luxury and spend over $100,000. And in that case, then sure, you got other options. But as far as three-row SUVs that are EVs, this is your one and only option, and it's not a bad one at all. I've driven through snow. I've driven throughout the mountains. The mountain roads where I live are extremely bumpy. I mean, that speed bump that I hit is nothing compared to what's around my house. They don't need to put speed bumps there. The potholes alone get the job done of slowing you down. But the suspension rides really well, and I just feel like this is a nice quality vehicle. Let's finish up with some final thoughts here. Let's say I'll name 2 things that I like and 2 things that I don't like. I don't like the location of the capacitive buttons and the push start button. 2 things that I do like: handling, power, and range. Sorry, I had to go for more than 2. Just, yeah, definitely really good range, really good power. And if you're on a road trip with your family, this charges at 350 kilowatts, well, like can charge up to 350 kilowatts an hour. Just good luck finding a charging station that can do that. And Kia has that agreement with Tesla, so you will be able to use the NACS, yes, yeah, the NAC chargers, NACS, so the Tesla superchargers. You can make use of those. So I'm going to go as far as saying this is the ultimate EV to do a road trip because of such fast charging capability. We're talking about charging a full battery DC fast charger in like 24-25 minutes. Peanuts. That's nothing as far as an EV. And for those people saying, oh, you know what, I want at least 500 miles of range, and you have a family and you need a 3-row SUV because you have multiple kids, you're gonna drive 500 miles non-stop. None of them are gonna have to go to the bathrooms, or none of them are gonna be needed to go make a quick stop somewhere for food. Come on, guys. You're gonna need to stop, okay? So what the range that this offers you, 270 miles, and you can maybe get up to 300 miles in some trims. I think that's more than enough. Or in Canada, 439 kilometers. I think the other trims are around 450 kilometers. Yeah, that's more than enough. And you can just stop 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and get it fully charged. You're good to go. This does the job. All right. So let me know in the comments if I missed anything, or if you enjoyed this review, or if you didn't enjoy it. I'm gonna hear that one too. But yeah, just comment below, like and subscribe to help us grow. And until then, we'll see you later.